welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are really getting into the architecture of your own mind.
We are. We're talking about how you judge risk, why you believe what you believe, and, why your decisions sometimes just go completely off the rails.
Right. We're diving into the work of Daniel Kahneman, and especially his book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
And the mission today really is to give you a solid handle on these two systems that are, running the show in your head, and to look at the systematic errors that come from them, the biases.
It's like if you feel you're running this incredibly sophisticated computer that somehow gets tripped up by the simplest illusions, you're not wrong.
Not at all. Kahneman and his collaborator Amos Tversky, they completely changed psychology and economics by showing that the human mind isn't this perfectly rational thing.
No, it's a machine built for speed.
Yeah.
For coherence. For survival, really.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for perfect logic.
Then we have to start with that partnership. Kahneman and Tversky, it was just extraordinary. Their research didn't start in some sterile lab.
It started with them just talking.
Exactly. It's just intense conversations, inventing these little questions, and then looking at their own intuitive answers, their own gut feelings.
And what's amazing is that they realized, even as these, brilliant psychological minds, that their own intuition was, well, it was kind of terrible.
Especially with statistics. They realized that they were way too quick to believe findings from studies with, not enough evidence. They were even doing it in their own work.
So even the experts are not good intuitive statisticians.
Yeah.
That's a huge discovery right there.
It's massive. And their method was just genius. They weren't trying to measure some deep, dark, unconscious thing. They just wanted to find that first quick answer.
The one you're tempted to give.
Yes. The one that feels right, even when you kind of know it's probably wrong. And they used these public demonstrations, not just dry experiments, so that everyone could see the flaws.
So that focus on these predictable, repeatable mistakes. That was the key.
That was it. At first, they were looking at how people judge probability, which led to their big paper, Judgment Under Uncertainty, Heuristics and Biases.
All those mental shortcuts we take.
Right. And then, a few years later, they shifted a bit. They went from just judgment to actual decision-making under risk, with gambles and money.
And that gave us prospect theory.
The other cornerstone? Prospect theory, an analysis of decision under risk. It's basically the foundation of behavioral economics.
It gave us a map for how real people, not some mythical rational agent, actually make choices when things are uncertain.
Okay, so let's get into the main event. The two characters in this whole story. System 1 and System 2.
Right, the dual engine of the mind.
Kahneman borrowed the terms from a couple of other psychologists, Stanovich and West, but he made them famous.
So System 1, this is the autopilot, right? The one that's always on.
Exactly. It's the one that operates, automatically super fast. You don't even feel it working. It's effortless.
Like seeing fear on someone's face or just knowing 2 + 2 is 4. You don't have to think about it.
Or braking when a car cuts you off. You just do it.
Yeah.
It's constantly feeding you these impressions, these intuitions that become the basis for what you consciously believe.
And then there's System 2.
The lazy controller. This is the one that you feel is you. It's your conscious self that makes choices, that concentrates.
So when you're trying to solve a tough math problem in your head.
23 times 78.
Right, exactly. Or you're trying to compare 2 job candidates or just focus on a really long, boring meeting. That's your System 2 kicking in.
And the most important thing to know about System 2 is that its main currency attention is incredibly limited.
It's a finite resource. You have a budget of mental effort, and when you spend it all on one thing, you become blind to everything else.
Which brings us to the gorilla.
The famous invisible gorilla study.
Chabris and Simons. They had people watch a video and gave them a really hard task. Count the number of basketball passes made by the players in white shirts.
It's tough. You have to really, really focus.
And while you're focusing, a woman in a full-body gorilla suit walks into the middle of the game, thumps her chest, and just walks off.
And the result is just, it's mind-blowing. About half the people who do it for the first time see nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Their attention is so absorbed by the counting task that this completely obvious, bizarre thing is rendered invisible.
But the crazier part isn't even missing the gorilla.
No.
It's what happens after. When you tell them about it, they are 100% certain it wasn't there.
They're blind to their own blindness. They cannot imagine how they could have missed it, which tells you something profound about how attention works. System 1 handles the seeing, but System 2 has to allocate a little bit of attention for it to register.
And if the budget is spent, you see nothing else.
You can actually see this effort physically. The research on this is fascinating. They used pupil dilation as a direct measure of mental load.
Like an electricity meter for your brain.
Pretty much. They'd give people these really demanding tasks, like the add 3 task. You have to hold 4 digits in your memory, say 5294, and then you have to add 3 to each of them in sequence. It's incredibly hard.
I can feel my brain hurting just thinking about it.
And your body reacts. Your pupils can dilate up to 50%. Your heart rate jumps about 7 beats a minute, all in the first few seconds. It's a state of extreme mental exertion.
Which is why we avoid it.
Exactly. The law of least effort. Our minds, just like our bodies, are fundamentally lazy. System 2 does not want to work that hard if it can get away with it.
You can feel this yourself, right? Try walking at a normal pace, and at the same time, try to calculate 23 times 78.
You'll stop walking.
You just stop. You can't do both. The mental calculation hijacks the resources needed to tell your body to keep moving deliberately.
And this inherent laziness, this is the back door that lets System 1's quick and sometimes wrong suggestions get through unchecked.
Which brings us to the cognitive reflection test, the CRT.
Yeah, Shane Frederick's brilliant little test. Let's do the famous one.
Yeah.
So listen carefully. A bat and a ball cost $1.10 total.
Got it. $1.10.
The bat costs exactly $1 more than the ball.
Okay.
So how much does the ball cost?
And the immediate answer, the one that just pops right into your head from System 1, is 10 cents.
It feels right. It's simple, it's coherent, and it's completely wrong.
Because if the ball is 10 cents, the bat is $1.10, and the total is $1.20, not $1.10.
You have to engage System 2. You have to stop, do the math, and realize the answer is 5 cents. The ball is 5 cents, the bat is $1.05.
And answering 10 cents is what Kahneman calls intellectual sloth. System 2 could have checked it. It just didn't.
It's not about intelligence either. Lots of very smart people get this wrong. It's about motivation, or what he calls rationality, the willingness to question your own intuition.
And Frederick found that people who score low on this test, people with a lazy System 2, tend to be more impulsive in general.
Absolutely. They're more likely to take the immediate reward. They'd rather have, say, $3,400 this month than wait a month for $3,800.
Even though waiting is clearly the better financial choice. System 1 wants it now. System 2 is the one that can think about the future, but only if it bothers to wake up.
So let's get deeper into the mechanics of that System 1. Kahneman calls it an associative machine.
It's all about making connections, creating coherent stories.
Right. When you see a word or have a thought, it doesn't just sit there. It triggers this cascade of related ideas, memories, emotions, even physical reactions.
The idea that cognition is embodied.
Yes, if you see the word pear, vomit, and disgust, you don't just understand the words. You might feel a tiny physical aversion, a slight tensing up. Your brain creates a coherent pattern, and your body is part of that pattern.
And this associative coherence, this is where priming comes from.
Priming is just. It's one of the most unsettling and fascinating things in psychology, the idea that being exposed to one idea can unconsciously influence what you do or think next.
The famous elderly prime study.
Oh, yeah. They had college students unscramble sentences that contain words associated with being old. Words like Florida, gray, wrinkle.
All very subtle.
Totally subtle. But then, when those students left the experiment, they were timed walking down the hall. And they walked more slowly than a control group.
Without having any idea why. They weren't consciously thinking about being old. System 1 made the connection and their bodies just followed.
And it goes the other way too. Your body can prime your mind.
Like the pencil trick.
The pencil trick. If you hold a pencil in your mouth in a way that forces your face into a smile, you will actually find cartoons funnier.
And if you force a frown, they're less funny.
Or if you make people nod their heads up and down while listening to an editorial, they're more likely to agree with it. Shaking their head makes them more likely to disagree.
Which is why that advice to act calm and kind, even if you don't feel it, is actually good advice.
It's great advice. Your behavior feeds back and influences your feelings. You can act your way into a new state of mind.
But the implications here are pretty profound. I mean, it really challenges our idea of ourselves as these rational, autonomous agents.
It really does. Look at voting. Studies have shown that people are significantly more likely to vote in favor of school funding if the polling station is physically located inside a school.
Just being in the building primes them.
The school environment serves as an unconscious System 1 prime that nudges what we think of as a very deliberate System 2 choice. It's a little scary.
And this all ties into what Kahneman calls cognitive ease versus cognitive strain.
Right. System 1 is always checking the temperature. Are things going well? Is everything normal?
If things are easy to process, the font is clear, you've heard the idea before, you're in a good mood. You're in a state of cognitive ease.
And when you're in that state, you're more likely to be creative, but also more superficial. You trust your intuitions, you believe what you hear, you like what you see.
But if you're in a state of cognitive strain, the font is blurry, the idea is complex, you're in a bad mood, you get more vigilant.
Exactly. You become more suspicious. You invest more effort. System 2 gets mobilized, and you actually make fewer errors.
This creates what are called illusions of truth. Things that are easier to process just feel more true.
It's why advertisers love repetition, and why simple, rhyming aphorisms are judged as more insightful than non-rhyming ones.
Woes unite foes sounds wiser than woes unite enemies.
It just does. The fluency, the cognitive ease, is mistaken by System 1 for a signal of truth.
And here's the kicker. They took that bat and ball test.
Oh, this is the best part.
And they printed it in this horrible, faint, washed-out font, barely legible. So it created massive cognitive strain.
And what happened?
Performance skyrocketed. Errors dropped from 90% in the easy-to-read version down to just 35%.
So making it harder to read actually made them smarter.
Because the strain woke up the lazy System 2. It forced them to slow down and actually check the intuitive answer. It's an incredible finding.
And one last thing on this topic of ease is the mere exposure effect.
Just seeing something over and over makes you like it.
Even if you don't consciously remember seeing it. Zajong, the psychologist who discovered it, argued this is a deep biological fact.
For survival, a novel stimulus could be dangerous.
Exactly. But if you're exposed to it repeatedly and nothing bad happens, that caution fades. Familiarity signals safety, and so familiarity breeds liking. System 1 is wired to prefer the familiar.
Okay, so let's get to the core of those System 1 shortcuts, the heuristics. This is where the biases really come from.
And the main mechanism behind all of them is something called substitution.
So System 1 is lazy. When it gets a hard question, it just swaps it out for an easier one.
Precisely. The target question might be, say, how much would you contribute to save an endangered species? That's a complex calculation.
Way too hard for System 1.
So it substitutes a heuristic question, like how much emotion do I feel when I think about dying dolphins?
And then it just maps that feeling onto a dollar amount.
That's called intensity matching. The intensity of your emotion is translated directly into the scale you were asked for. It's fast, it's efficient, and it leads to all sorts of predictable mistakes.
Let's start with the big one, the representativeness heuristic.
This is our tendency to judge probability based on similarity. Does A look like it belongs to category B?
We focus on stereotypes instead of statistics.
Which means we neglect the base rates. The Tom W. problem is the classic example. You give people a personality sketch of a grad student named Tom W.
And the sketch is full of stereotypes of, say, a computer science nerd.
Exactly. And then you ask people to guess his major. Overwhelmingly, they say computer science, but they completely ignore the most important piece of information.
The base rate. The fact that there are vastly more students in humanities and social sciences than in computer science.
The prior probability is that he's much more likely to be in a large field, but the stereotype, the representativeness, is so powerful it just wipes out the statistical fact.
And this leads to the most famous example of all, the Linda problem.
Ah, Linda. So you describe Linda as 31, single, outspoken, very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice.
Okay, so you're building a very specific picture.
A very specific stereotype. And then you ask, which is more probable? A, Linda is a bank teller. Or B, Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement.
And almost everyone says B.
Between 85 and 90% of people, but it's logically impossible.
Right. The group of feminist bank tellers is a subset of the group of bank tellers. So B has to be less probable than A.
Always. But the second scenario is more representative of the description of Linda. It's more plausible, more coherent. System 1 goes with the better story, not the better logic.
It's the conjunction fallacy. Adding detail makes a story more persuasive, but it always makes it less probable.
Next up, the availability heuristic.
This one is simple. We judge how frequent something is by how easily examples come to mind.
If it's easy to recall, we assume it's common.
Which is why we're terrified of shark attacks and plane crashes.
but not of, say, asthma or car accidents, which are far, far more likely to kill you. The dramatic, gruesome events get all the media coverage, they stick in our minds, and System 1 mistakes that availability for frequency.
And this can create an availability cascade.
Yes. A minor risk gets picked up by the media, which creates public fear, which leads to more media coverage, which creates more fear.
And suddenly you have a full-blown panic. And politicians are passing laws about something that was never a major threat to begin with. The Alar scare with apples back in the 80s is a perfect example.
And you see this heuristic in everyday life, too, in marriages, for example.
Oh, yeah. Spouses consistently overestimate their own contributions to housework, to chores, to everything.
Why? Because your own efforts are just so much more available to you. You remember every single time you took out the trash. You don't remember all the times your partner did it when you weren't looking.
Oh, everyone feels like they're doing about 70% of the work.
Right. Kahneman says just knowing that there's usually more than 100% credit to go around can actually help a lot. You have to use your system, too, to correct for the bias of your own memory.
We also have something called denominator neglect.
This is about how we process risk. System 1 gets much more worked up by relative frequencies than by abstract percentages.
So saying one child in 100,000 will be affected is more powerful than saying there's a 0.001% risk.
Much more powerful. The first one conjures an image of an actual child. The second is just a cold number. System 1 thinks in stories and images, not statistics.
And finally, the anchoring effect.
This one is just bizarrely powerful. Our estimates of something are pulled toward a number we've just considered, even if that number is completely random.
Okay, wait, hold on. Are you seriously telling me that if I see a random number, like on a spinning wheel, that it's going to change my guess for something totally unrelated?
It sounds crazy, but yes. That's exactly what the research shows. They'd spin a wheel of fortune, it would land on, say, 10. Then they'd ask people, is the percentage of African nations in the UN higher or lower than 10?
Okay.
Then they'd ask for their best guess. The average guess was 25%. But if the wheel landed on 65, the average guess jumped to 45%.
That's a huge difference from a totally useless number.
And what's happening is that the anchor biases System 1's memory search. The number 65 makes it easier for you to retrieve thoughts and memories consistent with high numbers.
So System 2 is working with a biased data set from the start.
Exactly. It has no control over the effect and, crucially, no knowledge of it. People will swear the random number had no influence, but the data proves it did. It sets the starting point, and we just don't adjust far enough away from it.
All right, let's shift from those shortcuts to how these systems lead to really flawed predictions and a lot of overconfidence.
It starts with something called the belief in the law of small numbers.
Which is the mistaken idea that small samples behave just like large samples.
Right. We know that if you flip a coin 1,000 times, you'll get very close to 50 heads and tails. But we intuitively expect that same reliability from flipping it just 4 times.
But small samples are where you get the extreme results just by pure chance.
Exactly. And yet, even professional researchers put way too much faith in the results of small studies. We're wired to see patterns and certainty where there's just noise.
And this connects directly to our struggle with a fundamental statistical concept, regression to the mean.
This is one of the hardest things for our brains to grasp. It's the simple statistical fact that if you have an extreme performance, the next one is likely to be closer to your average.
But System 1 hates that explanation. It wants a story. It wants a cause.
It demands a cause. So if an athlete has a career best game and then a just pretty good game, we say, oh, they got complacent or the pressure got to them.
When really it was just regression. The first game had a lot of good luck, and the second one had more normal luck.
The best story is from the Israeli Air Force. The flight instructors were convinced that criticizing pilots for a bad landing was effective because their next landing was usually better.
And praising them for a great landing was harmful because their next one was usually worse.
So they concluded criticism works and praise doesn't. But it was just regression to the mean. The great landing was unusually good, the bad one was unusually bad. The next one was just closer to their average skill level, regardless of the feedback.
And this leads to massive bias in our intuitive predictions.
Huge bias. When we're asked to predict a future outcome, like how well a new hire will do based on a fantastic interview, we substitute evaluation for prediction.
We just take the quality of the evidence, the great interview, and make a prediction that's just as extreme.
We fail to account for regression. We make non-regressive predictions. We assume that superstar interview performance will translate to superstar job performance, ignoring that the interview probably had a lot of luck involved, and their actual performance will likely be closer to average.
Then there's the hindsight bias, the I knew it all along effect.
This one is everywhere. After something happens, especially something surprising, our brains immediately rewrite history to make the outcome seem predictable.
We forget how uncertain we actually were before the event.
And this leads to something really damaging called the outcome bias. We judge the quality of decision based on whether the outcome was good or bad.
Not on whether the process was sound at the time the decision was made.
Exactly. So a doctor makes a decision based on the best available evidence. There's a small, known risk. The risk happens. Suddenly, everyone looks back and says the doctor should have known, that the bad outcome was obvious.
And because decision makers know this is how they'll be judged.
They become incredibly risk-averse. They choose the most defensible option, not necessarily the best one. They practice CYA, cover your.
Right.
Because they know they'll be judged by the outcome, not the process.
And beneath all this is the illusion of validity and skill.
The feeling of confidence. It's just that, a feeling. It comes from the coherence of the story system one is telling you, not from a rational assessment of how likely you are to be right.
You see this very clearly in finance.
Oh, absolutely. There was a huge study of individual brokerage accounts. On average, the stocks that people sold actually did better than the stocks they bought to replace them.
So they would have been better off just doing nothing.
By a lot. But the feeling of skill, the illusion that you can pick winners, is so powerful. The entire financial industry is practically built on rewarding luck as if it were skill.
We see this with experts in all kinds of fields, right? They're incredibly confident, even when they're proven to be wrong over and over again.
Like chief financial officers forecasting the stock market, their predictions had zero correlation with reality. Zero. But they were extremely confident because an expert is paid to be confident, not to say, I have no idea.
And this all culminates in the planning fallacy.
Our tendency to make plans and forecasts that are just wildly, unrealistically optimistic.
We focus on the best case scenario, and we ignore the statistics of similar projects.
The Scottish Parliament building is the classic case. The initial estimate was £40 million.
And the final cost?
$431 million. More than 10 times the original budget. And studies show this is the norm for big projects. Massive cost overruns, massive overestimation of benefits.
Because everyone is taking the inside view.
Exactly. They're focused on their specific, unique, special project. They build this optimistic story about their own skills and their own plan.
And they completely fail to take the outside view.
Which is the cure. The outside view means you deliberately ignore the details of your own project and you just ask, what happened when other people tried to do this?
You consult the reference class. What's the average cost overrun for a kitchen renovation in this city?
And that number, that baseline prediction, is almost always more accurate than your own detailed, optimistic plan. It's a dose of statistical reality that forces System 2 to get involved.
Okay, let's switch gears from judgment to choice. This brings us to prospect theory, which is maybe the most important idea in the whole book.
It is. But to understand it, you first have to understand what it replaced. Bernoulli's utility theory.
The old economic model.
Right, which said that people make choices based on the utility of their wealth. Your happiness depends on how much money you have, period.
Which sounds reasonable, but it has a massive flaw. It ignores the reference point.
A huge flaw. So imagine Jack and Jill both have $5 million today. According to Bernoulli, they should be equally happy.
But what if Jack started with $1 million and Jill started with $9 million?
Exactly. Jack is ecstatic. He just quadrupled his wealth. Jill is miserable. She just lost almost half her money. They are not in the same psychological state at all.
So our happiness isn't about our state of wealth. It's about the change in our wealth from where we started.
It's all about gains and losses relative to that reference point. And the fact that economists ignored this for so long is what Kahneman calls theory-induced blindness.
So prospect theory fixes this. It's a descriptive model of how people actually choose.
And it has two main features. First, and most important, is loss aversion.
The pain of losing is stronger than the pleasure of winning?
Much stronger. About 2 to 2.5 times stronger. A loss of $100 hurts more than a gain of $100 feels good.
This is why we won't take a 50-50 bet to win 100 or lose 100.
Nope. You'd have to offer me a chance to win at least $200 to make me risk losing that 100. The potential gain has to be big enough to overcome the pain of a potential loss.
And the second feature is our attitude toward risk,
which changes depending on where you are. In the domain of gains, when things are going well, We are risk-averse.
We'd rather take a sure thing than a gamble, even if the gamble has a slightly higher expected value.
Right. We want to lock in the win. But in the domain of losses, when we're facing two bad options, we become risk-seeking.
We'd rather take a gamble that gives us a chance to avoid the loss completely than to accept a smaller, certain loss.
We'll roll the dice to try and get back to zero.
And this all comes together in what's called the fourfold pattern of risk.
This combines our risk attitude with how we weight probabilities. We tend to overweight small probabilities, the possibility effect, and we overweight certainty, the certainty effect.
So let's take a high probability of a gain, like you have a 95% chance to win $1 million in court.
The certainty effect kicks in. That 5% chance of getting nothing feels huge, so you become extremely risk-averse. You'll take a sure settlement of, say, $900,000 just to eliminate that tiny risk.
Okay, now a low probability of a loss, like buying insurance.
The possibility effect kicks in. We overweight the small chance of a catastrophe, like your house burning down, so we become risk-averse and pay a certain loss, the insurance premium, to eliminate that small possibility of a huge loss.
Now, what about a high probability of a loss?
Here, the certainty of the loss is so painful that it drives us to be risk-seeking. A defendant with a 95% chance of losing $1 million will often reject a settlement for $900,000 and take their chances in court.
They're hoping for that 5% miracle.
And finally, a low probability of a gain. This is the lottery.
The possibility effect again. We overweight that tiny chance of winning the jackpot, which makes us risk-seeking. We'll pay for the ticket just for the dream.
That fourfold pattern explains so much of our economic behavior under uncertainty.
Prospect theory also gave us framing effects. The idea that how you phrase a choice, even if the outcomes are identical, can completely change the decision.
This was a direct assault on the economic idea of invariance, that a rational person should make the same choice regardless of how it's described.
The Asian disease problem is the killer example.
It is. So imagine an outbreak of a disease that's expected to kill 600 people. You're offered two programs. In the first frame, the game frame, your options are Program A, 200 people will be saved.
It's a sure thing.
Or Program B, a 1/3 probability that 600 people will be saved and a 2/3 probability that no one will be saved. Most people choose A. They're risk-averse for gains. They want to save those 200 people for sure.
But then you give another group the exact same problem, just framed differently, in the loss frame.
Right. Now the options are Program C, 400 people will die.
Which is the exact same outcome as Program A.
Identical. Or Program D, a 1/3 probability that nobody will die and a 2/3 probability that 600 people will die. And now, overwhelmingly, people choose the gamble, Program D. They become risk-seeking to avoid the certain loss.
Just changing the words save to die completely flips the preference.
It's System 1's emotional reaction to the frame. Saving lives feels good, people dying feels bad, and that emotional valence dictates the choice.
And this shows up in things like mental accounting, too.
Yeah, the lost ticket problem. If you pay $10 for a theater ticket and you lose it, most people won't buy another one.
Because in their head, the cost of seeing that show just doubled to $20. The loss is posted to the theater show mental account.
But if you lose a $10 bill on the way to the theater, most people will still buy the ticket. The loss is posted to a general bad luck account and doesn't feel connected to the price of the show.
Even though the financial reality is identical, you're out $10.
It's all about the frame, broadening the frame like an economist would, and treating the lost $10 as a sunk cost leads to the more rational decision. But that takes System 2 effort.
Okay, we've covered the systems, the biases, the choices. But there's one last big philosophical twist, the idea of the two selves.
This might be the most challenging part of the book. The idea that the you who makes decisions is not the same as the you who lives life moment to moment.
You have the experiencing self and the remembering self.
The experiencing self is the one that lives in the present. It's the one that feels the pain, the pleasure, the boredom. It answers the question, does it hurt now?
And the remembering self is the storyteller. It's the one that keeps score, that evaluates experiences after they're over, and critically, it's the one that makes your future choices. It answers the question, how was it on the whole?
And the problem is that the remembering self is a terrible historian. Its judgments are systematically biased by two things, the peak end rule and duration neglect.
Let's talk about the cold hand experiment.
It's just so clever. They had people put one hand in painfully cold water for 60 seconds, a genuinely unpleasant experience.
Yeah.
With the other hand, they did the same thing. 60 seconds of painfully cold water, plus an extra 30 seconds where they secretly raised the water temperature by just 1 degree. Still painful, but slightly less so.
So the second trial is objectively worse. It's all the pain of the first one, plus 30 more seconds of pain.
More total pain. But because it ended on a slightly less painful note, the remembering self gave it a better rating.
That's the peak end rule. The memory of the experience is basically an average of the most intense moment, the peak, and how it felt right at the very end.
And what about the total length of the experience?
It doesn't matter. That's duration neglect. The fact that one trial was 50% longer had almost no effect on the memory of it.
And here is the truly absurd part. When they asked people which of the 2 trials they would prefer to repeat,
They chose the longer one.
they chose the one with more total pain because it left a better memory. It's a direct conflict between the 2 selves, and the remembering self is the one in charge of decisions.
We're basically choosing to give our experiencing self more pain, just to give our remembering self a better story to tell.
It's what Kahneman calls a manifestly absurd choice. We see life as a story, and a bad ending can ruin the whole story, even if most of the story was good. The memory trumps the reality of the experience.
So after all of this, all these flaws and biases, how do we actually get better at thinking? How do we tame these intuitions?
Well, the key is to know you can't just will yourself to be better. You have to use processes and structures that engage System 2 and sideline System 1's flawed judgments.
Like fighting the halo effect,
Yeah.
where our first impression of someone colors everything else we think about them.
Exactly. In something like a job interview, the answer is structure. Don't just have a chat. Break down the job into key tropes, technical skill, term work, etc., and ask factual questions about each one in a fixed order.
And score them independently.
Yes, so your overall positive or negative feeling about the person doesn't bleed into your evaluation of their specific skills. You decorrelate the errors. The simple formula of adding up those independent scores will almost always be better than your holistic, intuitive judgment.
Which leads to the bigger idea. Formulas often beat experts.
It's a hard pill for experts to swallow, but decades of research show that in noisy, low-validity environments like forecasting stock prices or parole violations, a simple statistical algorithm will outperform a human expert.
Why is that?
Because humans try to be clever. We get tempted by special information and we try to make complex combinations, but that just adds noise. The formula is consistent. It applies the same weights every single time. It eliminates human error and inconsistency.
So when can we actually trust our expert intuition?
Kahneman gives 2 conditions. First, the environment has to be regular and predictable. Chess, firefighting, anesthesia. These are high-validity environments.
There are clear rules and patterns.
And second, you need the opportunity for prolonged practice with immediate, clear feedback. If you have both those things, you can develop true expertise. But something like long-term political forecasting, that's a zero-validity environment. Expert intuition there is mostly an illusion.
For those situations where we're prone to overconfidence and the planning fallacy, we need a special tool.
We need the premortem. This is an idea from the psychologist Gary Klein.
I love this idea.
It's brilliant. So your team is on the verge of making a big decision. Everyone is excited. Before you finalize it, you say, okay, everyone, imagine it's a year from now. The plan was a complete, unmitigated disaster. Take 5 minutes and write a brief history of that disaster.
So you make the failure a fact.
You make it a historical fact. And that liberates everyone from the pressure of groupthink and having to be optimistic. Suddenly, people feel free to bring up all the potential risks they were too nervous to mention before. It legitimizes doubt.
It surfaces the unknown unknowns that the planning fallacy makes us ignore.
It's a fantastic way to force System 2 to look for flaws in System 1's beautiful, coherent, optimistic story.
And finally, these ideas have huge implications for public policy. The whole idea of nudging.
Right, from Thaler and Sunstein. The idea is called libertarian paternalism. You don't take away people's freedom of choice, but since you know people will often make bad choices, you can design the choice architecture to nudge them toward a better outcome.
The power of the default option.
That's the biggest one. We know System 2 is lazy, so if you make saving for retirement an opt-out system instead of an opt-in system, participation rates go through the roof.
You're aligning the path of least resistance with people's long-term interests.
Exactly. Or look at organ donation rates. In countries where the default is that you are a donor unless you opt out, the rates are over 90%. In countries where you have to opt in, they can be as low as 15%. The default is perceived as the normal, recommended choice, and most people just go with it.
So to wrap this all up,
Hmm.
What's the big takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the core insight is that you aren't one single rational mind. You're this messy, complicated partnership between a fast, intuitive storytelling system one,
And a slow, analytical, but incredibly lazy system two.
and most of the time our brilliant system two is just acting as a press secretary for system one, coming up with clever reasons to justify what our intuition wanted to do all along.
So just knowing about the biases isn't enough.
It's the first step. But the real goal is to strive for what Kahneman calls compatibility, making sure your judgments are compatible not just with your own internal story, but with the statistical realities of the world, with base rates, with regression to the mean.
Remembering that your confidence is a measure of the story's coherence, not its truth.
Exactly. And maybe here's a final provocative thought to leave everyone with. Kahneman suggests that one of the best ways to improve decisions in an organization might be to, as he puts it, educate gossip.
Educate gossip. What does that mean?
It means changing what people gossip about. Instead of just gossiping about whether a decision had a good or bad outcome, which is just outcome bias, you create a culture where people gossip about the quality of the decision-making process.
So people would ask, did they consider the outside view? Did they do a pre-mortem? Were they aware of the potential for anchoring?
Precisamente. When decision makers know that their process will be scrutinized and discussed, not just the lucky or unlucky outcome, they are forced to think more carefully. They start to anticipate the criticism of informed gossipers.
So how could you, in your own team or your own family, start to change the conversation? Start encouraging better, more informed gossip about the quality of the process itself.
It's about rewarding good process, not just good outcomes. And that is something we're thinking about, slowly.